In a world constantly demanding us to fix what feels broken, to control what slips through our fingers, and to master every emotion that arises, the true strength lies not in dominance, but in acceptance. Emotional acceptance is not surrender, it is the courageous act of facing the tempest within without losing your center. Be like Medusa, fierce, unyielding, yet profoundly serene in the eye of the storm. The myth of Medusa has long been misunderstood as a symbol of fear or curse, but at its core, it embodies the power of embracing one's reality without denial or resistance. To accept emotions, especially those deemed negative, is to disarm their hold over us. It is the stoic path, recognizing what lies beyond our control and meeting it with a calm and deliberate gaze. Women today face unique pressures, the expectation to feel deeply but not too much, to express but not overwhelm, to be vulnerable yet strong. Emotional acceptance becomes an essential skill, a fortress built from the ground up with mindfulness, self-awareness, and reasoned reflection. It is how we reclaim our agency in a world eager to dictate how we should feel. This journey demands the discipline to observe emotions without judgment and the strength to let them pass without reaction. It calls for a mindset anchored in rationality, yet compassionate toward our own humanity. Be like Medusa. Look steadily at your emotions without flinching, and you will find that they no longer possess the power to petrify your spirit. This is not a call to emotional numbness or detachment, but to mastery through acceptance. Join me in this exploration of how to train your mind to embrace what you cannot control, transforming anxiety, frustration, and fear into sources of quiet strength. Like Medusa, learn to wield the power of your gaze. Emotional acceptance is a cornerstone of psychological resilience, especially for women navigating the complex demands of modern life. When we refuse to resist or deny what we feel, we stop wasting precious energy fighting shadows and begin to cultivate true inner peace. This practice is deeply aligned with Stoic philosophy, which teaches us to distinguish between what is within our control and what is not, and to meet the uncontrollable with reasoned calmness. The archetype of Medusa offers a powerful symbol of this mindset, a woman who, despite the chaos around her, remains grounded, unmoved by the judgments or turmoil that threaten to consume her. In this series, we will explore how to train the mind to accept what cannot be controlled, using Medusa as our guide, a figure who embodies fierce authenticity, emotional strength, and the radical acceptance necessary to maintain sovereignty over the self. You will discover psychological insights, practical tools, and philosophical wisdom designed to help you face anxiety, social pressures, and intense emotions without losing your balance or your sense of self. I invite you to engage deeply with these ideas, practice the reflections offered, and integrate the lessons into your daily life. If this resonates with you, please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from, your city and country. Your participation creates a community of women committed to emotional mastery and authentic power. Remember, emotional acceptance is not weakness. It is the foundation of lasting strength. Together, we will learn how to be like Medusa, firm, wise, and unshakable in the face of life's uncontrollable currents. Emotional acceptance begins with understanding that emotions are natural responses, not enemies to be defeated. For women, societal expectations often create a paradox, encouraged to be expressive, yet criticized when emotions are deemed too much. This internal conflict fosters anxiety and self-doubt. Medusa's gaze reminds us that the power to accept our emotions lies in acknowledging their reality without allowing them to define or control us. Acceptance is an active stance, a deliberate choice to meet feelings with curiosity and calm observation rather than resistance. From a psychological perspective, acceptance reduces emotional reactivity by interrupting the cycle of avoidance and suppression. Research in mindfulness and acceptance-based therapies shows that when we acknowledge difficult emotions, they lose their intensity and grip. The stoic principle aligns perfectly here. Recognize what is outside your control, in this case, the arising of emotions, and respond with reasoned judgment rather than impulse. Consider anxiety, a common experience for many women today. Anxiety is often a response to uncertainty and perceived threats beyond our control. The instinct might be to fight, avoid, or numb these feelings, but such reactions deepen the struggle. Medusa's symbolic strength teaches us to face anxiety squarely, to hold its presence without flinching. This confrontation does not make the anxiety disappear instantly, but it defangs its power and opens space for thoughtful action. Practically, emotional acceptance requires cultivating self-awareness, regularly checking in with your inner state without judgment. Journaling, meditation, or simply pausing throughout the day to note what you feel can build this skill. Over time, you learn that emotions are transient, waves in the ocean of your consciousness. This perspective fosters detachment, not in the sense of indifference, but in balanced observation. Another key element is setting clear boundaries. Emotional acceptance does not mean tolerating harmful situations or people. Medusa's archetype is fierce and protective. To accept your emotions also means to assert what you will not accept externally. Boundaries preserve your emotional integrity and provide a safe space for acceptance to flourish. The pressure women face to manage emotions for others, family, work, social settings, can lead to emotional exhaustion. Here, acceptance serves as a form of self-care. By accepting your feelings, you stop pretending and overextending to please or control others' perceptions. This honesty creates freedom and builds authentic relationships. Stoicism teaches us to focus energy only on what is within our power, our thoughts, judgments, and choices. Emotions themselves are automatic, but our response to them is where power lies. Medusa's unwavering gaze symbolizes this locus of control. When you refuse to be dominated by your emotions, you reclaim your autonomy. The practice of emotional acceptance also involves embracing solitude. This solitude is not loneliness, but a deliberate space where you can confront your inner life without distraction or external influence. Like Medusa, whose power is often linked to her isolation, solitude strengthens your capacity for self-reflection and emotional mastery. Importantly, acceptance does not mean passivity. It is the foundation for wise action. Once emotions are accepted and understood, you can decide how to respond skillfully rather than react blindly. This intentionality transforms emotional turmoil into insight and growth. Finally, the path to emotional acceptance is ongoing and non-linear. It requires patience, kindness toward oneself, and perseverance. Medusa's strength is not in perfection, but in enduring presence, steadfast through all storms. By training your mind to accept what cannot be controlled, you build a fortress of inner peace that no external force can shatter. True mastery begins not with commanding the world around us, but with mastering our relationship to what lies beyond our control. Women are often socialized to feel responsible for managing outcomes, emotions of others and situations, an impossible burden that fuels stress and burnout. Medusa's archetype teaches a powerful lesson, the recognition that some forces are immutable, and our sovereignty depends on accepting this reality with calm resolve. This acceptance is not defeat, but a strategic repositioning of power. From a psychological standpoint, attempting to control the uncontrollable leads to cognitive dissonance, a mental state of conflict between beliefs and reality that erodes well-being. For example, trying to control another person's feelings or reactions only sets us up for disappointment. The Stoics, especially Epictetus, emphasize that peace is found in distinguishing between what depends on us, our judgments and actions, and what does not, everything else. This distinction is essential for emotional health. Medusa's gaze symbolizes the boundary between control and surrender. When you embody her strength, you direct your focus inward, toward your thoughts, your attitudes, your decisions, while releasing attachment to external outcomes. This inner focus creates an unshakable foundation amid external chaos. Women who master this are less likely to be swept away by social pressures or emotional turbulence. A practical strategy to master control is to develop a circle of influence mindset. This involves consciously identifying what you can influence and what is outside your reach. For example, you cannot control how a colleague responds to your ideas, but you can control how clearly and confidently you communicate. Accepting this dichotomy reduces anxiety and fosters proactive behavior. Women facing anxiety or social pressure often feel overwhelmed by trying to micromanage situations. Medusa's archetype encourages releasing this illusion of control. Instead, anchor yourself in your values and principles, the internal compass that guides your actions regardless of outcomes. This empowers you to act with integrity and detachment from results. Emotionally, mastering control over the uncontrollable means cultivating equanimity, an evenness of mind that resists being tossed by external events. This is not emotional suppression, but a balanced state where emotions are acknowledged but do not dictate behavior. This balance is learned through consistent practice of mindfulness and stoic reflection. Another stoic practice useful here is the premeditatio malorum, the anticipation of potential difficulties. By mentally rehearsing challenges and accepting them as part of life, women can reduce fear and anxiety related to uncertainty. Medusa's story, filled with trials and transformations, teaches resilience, born from facing reality head-on. Setting boundaries is also a form of mastering control. By clearly defining what you will and will not tolerate, you take charge of your environment and protect your emotional space. Medusa's protective nature reminds us that strength lies in defense as much as in action. Boundaries are necessary for sustaining emotional acceptance and stability. Importantly, mastering control over the uncontrollable involves accepting impermanence. Emotions, situations, and people change constantly. The grip of control loosens when we internalize this truth, allowing us to flow with life rather than resist it. This dynamic acceptance creates freedom and reduces suffering. Ultimately, embodying Medusa's power means embracing paradox, being fierce and firm in your principles, yet flexible and accepting in what you cannot change. This duality is the essence of stoic wisdom and psychological resilience. By mastering your response to the uncontrollable, you reclaim your agency and live with greater peace and purpose. Anxiety often arises from the illusion that we can control future outcomes or prevent discomfort. Women, in particular, face societal pressures to manage not only their own emotions, but the emotional climates of their families, workplaces, and communities. This overwhelming sense of responsibility can trap the mind in cycles of worry and fear. The archetype of Medusa offers a different path, acknowledging anxiety as a signal rather than a command, and meeting it with steady acceptance rather than resistance. Psychological research underscores the importance of recognizing anxiety as an adaptive response, an alarm that alerts us to potential threats but does not define our reality. Acceptance and commitment. Therapy, ACT, emphasizes accepting anxious thoughts and feelings without judgment, thereby reducing their power. This practice mirrors Stoic techniques that teach detachment from internal events by viewing them objectively. Women can empower themselves by shifting from a mindset of fight or flight to one of observe and respond. Medusa's unblinking gaze is a metaphor for this stance, observing emotions without becoming entangled in them. This allows space for choice, where anxiety does not control behavior but informs deliberate action. Practically, cultivating this stance requires regular mindfulness practice, pausing to notice the arising of anxious thoughts without immediately reacting. This pause creates a gap where reason can intervene. Over time, this strengthens mental flexibility and resilience. It is crucial to challenge the belief that anxiety must be eradicated for peace to exist. Instead, acceptance invites a partnership with anxiety, acknowledging its presence without allowing it to dictate decisions. This partnership fosters courage as women learn to move forward despite discomfort. Another stoic tool is journaling, particularly reflecting on what aspects of a situation are within one's control. Writing clarifies boundaries and encourages focusing energy where it can be effective, rather than expending it on futile attempts to change the uncontrollable. Social pressures compound anxiety by creating expectations that are often unrealistic or contradictory. Medusa's image reminds women to reject these external demands that do not align with their values. Establishing firm boundaries around emotional labor and self-care is a practical application of this rejection. Emotional acceptance, combined with boundary setting, reduces the chronic stress caused by trying to please or control others. It also cultivates authenticity, allowing women to show their true selves without fear of judgment or rejection. Over time, embracing anxiety as part of life's landscape rather than a flaw cultivates emotional endurance. Women learn that discomfort is transient and manageable. This endurance echoes Medusa's mythological transformation, turning fear and pain into sources of power and protection. Ultimately, training the mind to accept anxiety transforms it from an obstacle into a guide, a reminder of what matters, and a motivator for grounded action. Like Medusa, women develop a gaze that neither shies away from fear nor is consumed by it, embodying emotional acceptance as an enduring strength. Setting boundaries is essential for emotional acceptance and mental health, especially for women who are often conditioned to prioritize others' needs above their own. The Medusa archetype exemplifies the power of clear, unwavering limits. She is a protector of her own space and refuses intrusion. Boundaries are not walls of isolation, but necessary lines that define where your emotional sovereignty begins and ends. Psychologically, boundaries serve to protect against emotional overwhelm and manipulation. Without them, anxiety and resentment grow as personal needs are sidelined. Acceptance of what cannot be controlled includes accepting that you cannot control others' demands or behaviors, making boundary setting a vital skill for reclaiming agency. Women frequently face social pressure to be nice, keep the peace, or put up with difficult people and situations. Medusa's story offers a radical counterpoint, fierce authenticity that does not compromise inner values for external approval. Boundaries signal to others what is acceptable and what is not, preserving emotional integrity. Practical boundary setting begins with self-awareness, understanding your limits, needs, and triggers. This requires honest reflection, sometimes painful, but essential for growth. Journaling or therapy can support this process by clarifying where boundaries have been crossed or blurred. Communicating boundaries clearly and calmly is crucial. Medusa's gaze is steady, unwavering, a symbol of directness and clarity. Similarly, expressing your limits without aggression or apology fosters respect and reduces confusion in relationships. Importantly, boundaries are flexible, not rigid. They evolve with circumstances and self-understanding. Accepting this fluidity prevents perfectionism and self-judgment when boundaries are tested or adjusted. Women may fear that setting boundaries will lead to rejection or conflict. However, living without boundaries often results in emotional burnout and loss of self. Medusa's myth teaches that protecting oneself is an act of courage and self-respect, not selfishness. Emotional acceptance also means accepting the discomfort that may arise when enforcing boundaries. Resistance from others is inevitable, but steadfastness rooted in self-awareness and reason enables perseverance. This resilience is a hallmark of Medusa's power. Boundaries create the emotional space necessary for authentic connection. When you honor your limits, relationships deepen in honesty and mutual respect. This authenticity strengthens community and reduces social anxiety born of people-pleasing. Ultimately, mastering boundaries is integral to training the mind to accept what cannot be controlled. It shifts focus inward to what you can govern: your choices, your values, your emotional well-being. Like Medusa, standing firm in your boundaries allows you to face life with courage, dignity, and emotional freedom. Radical authenticity is a cornerstone of emotional acceptance and psychological empowerment. Women are often pressured to conform, to hide discomfort, mask vulnerability, or perform a version of themselves that is acceptable to others. Medusa's archetype, however, stands as a symbol of unapologetic truth. To be like Medusa is to embody the courage to show oneself fully, embracing imperfections without denial or shame. Psychological research highlights the liberating effects of authenticity on mental health. When women accept and express their true emotions and thoughts, anxiety decreases and self-esteem grows. This acceptance is not about seeking approval, but about aligning with inner values, which Stoicism teaches as essential for peace of mind. Societal expectations often conflict with authenticity, pushing women to silence or modify their feelings. This creates internal dissonance and emotional suppression, which fuel distress. Medusa's gaze cuts through illusion and pretense, reminding women that power resides in facing oneself honestly. Practically, cultivating authenticity involves ongoing self-reflection and courage. This means acknowledging uncomfortable truths, embracing vulnerabilities, and resisting the urge to conform to external pressures. Mindfulness and journaling can help track moments when authenticity is compromised. Accepting what cannot be controlled includes accepting others' reactions to your authenticity. Women may fear rejection or criticism, but Medusa's myth teaches that external judgments do not define your worth. Your power comes from owning your truth regardless of others' approval. Radical authenticity also requires self-compassion. It is a process, not perfection. Women must forgive themselves for past compromises and gently encourage growth. Stoicism's emphasis on progress over perfection supports this mindset. Emotional acceptance tied to authenticity empowers women to set healthier boundaries, communicate clearly, and make choices aligned with their true selves. This reduces anxiety caused by dissonance between inner experience and outward behavior. The archetype of Medusa, often misunderstood as monstrous, is reclaimable as a figure of empowerment through authenticity. She embodies the strength to stand firm in her identity, transforming fear and rejection into resilience. Socially, authentic women inspire others to do the same, creating communities grounded in honesty and mutual respect. This ripple effect strengthens collective emotional well-being and challenges oppressive norms. Ultimately, embracing radical authenticity is a profound act of emotional acceptance and liberation. To be like Medusa is to recognize that true power arises from living honestly within the limits of what we cannot control, forging a path of integrity, courage, and inner peace. Solitude is often misunderstood as loneliness, but for women seeking emotional mastery, it is a chosen refuge. an essential space for self-reflection, emotional regulation, and mental clarity. Medusa's myth, frequently tied to isolation, symbolizes this power of solitude. To be like Medusa is to embrace solitude not as punishment, but as a sanctuary where the mind can train itself to accept what cannot be controlled. Psychologically, solitude fosters self-awareness, which is crucial for emotional acceptance. When free from external distractions and social expectations, women can observe their thoughts and feelings objectively. This observational stance allows for greater clarity and reduces emotional reactivity, aligning with stoic ideals of reasoned reflection. In a society that often values constant connection and busyness, choosing solitude requires courage and discipline. It is a deliberate act of self-care and resistance against the pressure to perform or please. Medusa's image encourages women to reclaim time for themselves, to deepen their relationship with their inner world. Practically, solitude can take many forms. Quiet moments of meditation, reflective journaling, walks alone in nature, or simply setting aside time without digital distractions. These practices cultivate the mental space needed to face difficult emotions without avoidance or suppression. Emotional acceptance thrives in this space of solitude. When alone, women can confront anxiety, frustration, or sadness without external input, allowing these emotions to surface and pass naturally. This process builds emotional endurance and reduces the impulse to control or deny. Stoic philosophy supports the practice of solitude as a means to strengthen the mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about retreating inward to cultivate peace and reason. Medusa's archetype, viewed through this lens, embodies the wisdom found in solitude, a readiness to face oneself without distraction. Socially, embracing solitude challenges norms that equate being alone with weakness or failure. Women who choose solitude demonstrate strength by prioritizing their mental well-being over societal approval. This radical choice supports emotional acceptance and autonomy. However, solitude is not a call to isolation or disconnection from supportive relationships. Rather, it is a balanced practice that complements community and connection. Medusa's power lies in knowing when to withdraw for restoration and when to engage with the world from a place of strength. Emotional acceptance practiced in solitude empowers women to respond rather than react in social situations. The calm, cultivated in solitude, acts as a buffer against social anxiety and emotional overwhelm, reinforcing the ability to accept what cannot be controlled. Ultimately, the path of solitude nurtures the mind's capacity to accept life's uncontrollable elements. To be like Medusa is to honor this sacred space within yourself, where clarity, strength, and acceptance converge, creating an unshakable foundation for emotional mastery. Pressure, whether from social expectations, professional demands, or internal standards, can be suffocating, especially for women conditioned to juggle multiple roles flawlessly. The Medusa archetype teaches that pressure, while inevitable, can be transformed into a source of strength when met with acceptance and purpose. To be like Medusa is to recognize that pressure is not the enemy, but a catalyst for growth when managed with clarity and resolve. Psychologically, pressure triggers stress responses that can either debilitate or motivate. The key difference lies in perception and response. Women who view pressure as a threat tend to experience anxiety and burnout, while those who accept pressure as a challenge harness it for focused action. Stoicism emphasizes shifting perception to focus on what can be controlled, one's effort and attitude, rather than external pressures. Medusa's story, marked by profound transformation, exemplifies the potential to transmute adversity into empowerment. Facing betrayal and isolation, she did not succumb, but found a new form of power rooted in acceptance and inner strength. Similarly, women can reframe pressure as an invitation to deepen resilience and align with their core values. Practical steps include identifying the sources of pressure and distinguishing those within your control from those outside it. This clarity allows women to prioritize energy on meaningful efforts rather than futile attempts to change uncontrollable demands or opinions. Mindfulness and reflective practices help in observing how pressure affects emotions and thoughts, creating space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. This detachment aligns with Medusa's steady gaze, unwavering and calm amid turmoil. Setting realistic goals and expectations is essential to managing pressure. Women often internalize perfectionistic standards that exacerbate stress. Acceptance of imperfection, a stoic virtue, fosters self-compassion and sustainable effort. Building supportive networks also mitigates pressure's impact. While Medusa embodies solitude, she is not isolated from the power of connection. Sharing challenges with trusted allies provides perspective and encouragement, reinforcing emotional acceptance. Emotional acceptance under pressure involves acknowledging feelings of overwhelm or doubt without judgment. Recognizing these emotions as transient and natural prevents escalation into anxiety or despair. Women who train their minds to accept pressure as part of life develop grit, a persistent and focused determination to pursue their purpose despite obstacles. This grit is a defining aspect of Medusa's archetype, fierce, resilient and purposeful. Ultimately, transforming pressure into purpose is a practice of emotional acceptance and rational action. To be like Medusa means to harness life's pressures as fuel for growth, standing firm and unwavering in your commitment to yourself and your path. Letting go is one of the most challenging yet liberating practices for the mind. Women often hold tightly to expectations, relationships, or past experiences that no longer serve them, driven by fear of loss, uncertainty, or failure. Medusa's archetype invites a radical form of acceptance, the conscious release of what cannot be controlled, freeing the mind to focus on what truly matters. To be like Medusa is to embody the strength to let go without losing oneself. Psychologically, holding on to uncontrollable aspects of life creates persistent stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. The brain's natural resistance to change can trap women in cycles of rumination and regret. Stoicism teaches that serenity comes from distinguishing between what is within our power and what is not, and intentionally releasing attachment to the latter. Medusa's myth embodies this process of transformation through release. Cursed and isolated, she could have remained a victim of her circumstances, but instead she became a powerful force by accepting her fate and redirecting her energy inward. This acceptance models the courage required to let go and reclaim agency. Practically, cultivating the art of letting go involves mindfulness practices that increase awareness of attachments and the discomfort they cause. Noticing these feelings without judgment allows women to gradually loosen their grip. Journaling can be a powerful tool to identify what no longer serves you. Writing about fears, regrets, or unhealthy attachments externalizes them, making release more achievable. Medusa's gaze symbolizes the clarity that comes with this honest self-examination. Letting go also means forgiving oneself and others. Holding on to resentment or guilt consumes emotional resources and obstructs acceptance. Stoic philosophy highlights forgiveness as a rational act that frees the mind from unnecessary burdens. Women may fear that letting go means losing control or giving up. Medusa's archetype dispels this myth by showing that true control comes from accepting change rather than resisting it. Letting go is an empowered choice, not a passive surrender. Socially, releasing attachments that no longer serve may involve difficult conversations or endings. Setting boundaries and accepting that some relationships or situations are beyond repair are acts of radical self-respect. Emotional acceptance in letting go nurtures resilience, allowing women to adapt to new realities without being overwhelmed. This flexibility is a key component of mental strength and aligns with Medusa's enduring presence despite adversity. Ultimately, cultivating the art of letting go is an ongoing practice of acceptance, courage, and wisdom. To be like Medusa is to face life's impermanence with steady resolve, releasing what cannot be controlled to embrace freedom and inner peace. The gaze is more than a visual act. It symbolizes presence, awareness, and self-mastery. Medusa's gaze, often misunderstood as a weapon of petrification, can be reframed as a metaphor for the disciplined and unwavering attention one gives to the self. To be like Medusa is to cultivate a gaze that meets life and emotions with clarity, steadiness, and control, embodying true inner sovereignty. Psychologically, self-mastery involves developing metacognition, the ability to observe one's thoughts and emotions objectively. This skill is foundational for emotional acceptance and regulation. Women who cultivate this gaze learn to disengage from reactive patterns and respond with intention, breaking cycles of anxiety or impulsiveness. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of constant self-examination and mindful awareness. Marcus Aurelius described the mind as a fortress that must be guarded vigilantly. Medusa's gaze symbolizes this vigilance, a steadfast watchfulness over one's internal state that prevents being overwhelmed by external chaos or internal turmoil. Practically, cultivating the gaze of self-mastery requires daily practices of mindfulness, journaling, and reflection. These create habits of observing emotions as they arise without immediate judgment or reaction, fostering a calm and rational mindset. Women often face internalized narratives shaped by societal expectations that challenge self-mastery. Medusa's archetype encourages rejecting these limiting stories and reclaiming authority over one's narrative, seeing oneself clearly without distortion or shame. Developing self-mastery also means recognizing and owning one's vulnerabilities without denial. This acceptance creates strength by integrating all parts of the self rather than fragmenting identity through avoidance or repression. Emotional acceptance is deepened by the gaze of self-mastery. By consistently observing emotions, women learn that feelings are temporary phenomena, not defining features of the self. This realization reduces the power emotions have to dictate behavior. Socially, embodying this gaze allows women to engage authentically and confidently, grounded in self-awareness rather than external validation. This presence inspires respect and fosters healthier relationships. The gaze of self-mastery is a form of empowerment that transforms fear into calm observation and reaction into choice. Medusa's myth reminds us that true power lies not in domination of others, but in mastery of the self. Ultimately, to be like Medusa is to hold a gaze of unwavering self-awareness and control, cultivating a mind trained to accept what cannot be controlled and respond with reasoned calm. This mastery is the foundation of emotional resilience and authentic empowerment. Stoic reason is the anchor that steadies the mind amidst life's uncertainties and emotional turbulence. For women seeking to train their minds to accept what cannot be controlled, Stoic philosophy offers a practical framework grounded in logic, clarity, and discipline. Medusa's archetype embodies this reasoned strength, an unyielding mind that faces reality squarely and governs itself with wisdom. Psychological resilience depends heavily on cognitive reframing, the ability to reinterpret challenges without distortion or emotional escalation. Stoicism formalizes this through principles such as distinguishing between what is in our power and what is not, and focusing energy exclusively on the former. This mental discipline fosters acceptance and reduces anxiety. Medusa's myth can be seen as an allegory for the transformative power of reason. From a figure associated with chaos and fear, she becomes a symbol of self-control and protection. Her gaze, once feared, is reclaimed as a representation of rational clarity cutting through illusion. Practically, anchoring yourself in stoic reason involves daily reflection on your thoughts and responses. Techniques such as journaling, meditation, or dialogue with a mentor or peer encourage critical self-examination and reinforce rational habits. Women face particular societal pressures that can cloud reason with emotion or internalized narratives of inadequacy. Embracing stoic reason requires courage to question these influences and reaffirm personal values and judgments based on evidence and wisdom rather than fear or conformity. Emotional acceptance is inseparable from reasoned reflection. When emotions arise, Stoicism teaches observing them without immediate reaction and considering the appropriate, value-driven response. This fosters emotional intelligence and autonomy. Setting clear intentions anchored in reason helps women navigate social complexities without losing themselves. Medusa's archetype symbolizes this grounded intentionality, a mental fortress that withstands external storms. Reason also guides ethical behavior, which Stoicism holds as central to a good life. Women who train their minds to accept uncontrollable elements do so not only for peace of mind, but to live in alignment with integrity and authenticity. The journey to Stoic reason and emotional acceptance is ongoing, requiring patience and persistence. Medusa's enduring presence through myth reminds us that strength comes from consistent practice and steadfast commitment to inner growth. Ultimately, to be like Medusa is to anchor yourself in stoic reason, cultivating a mind disciplined in acceptance, clear in judgment, and unwavering in purpose. This is the foundation of true emotional mastery and empowered living. The journey of training the mind to accept what cannot be controlled is both profound and practical. Through the archetype of Medusa and the wisdom of Stoic philosophy, women are invited to reclaim emotional sovereignty, transforming anxiety, pressure, and social expectations into sources of strength. This path demands courage, discipline, and radical acceptance, not as passive surrender, but as empowered mastery over the self. To be like Medusa is to stand firm in your boundaries, embrace solitude, cultivate authenticity, and hold an unwavering gaze upon your emotions. It is to anchor yourself in reason and let go of illusions of control over the external world. This mindset fosters resilience and peace, enabling women to navigate life's challenges with dignity and clarity. I encourage you to integrate these teachings into your daily life through reflection, mindful practice, and compassionate self-awareness. Share your journey, connect with others, and continue to build your fortress of emotional mastery. Remember, true power is not in controlling the uncontrollable, but in mastering your response. This is the legacy of Medusa and the essence of Stoic wisdom.